Hello everyone, this is Samuel McClamrock, and this is my philosophy video project. I would just like to apologize for my mic off the bat because I know the quality is pretty trash. So, in this project, I'm going to be applying three philosophers and their beliefs to a current issue, and I'm going to be going with Socrates, Plato, and the main man, Aristotle. So, my societal topic that I'm going to go ahead and cover is going to be pornography. So before I can tackle an issue like this, I like to kind of justify and show why I wanted to pick it. So I truly believe that pornography is this generation's cigarettes. Um, I think 20 years of readily available porn has really showed a lot of negative results, and they're really, really not pretty. There's lots of negative side effects that I've listed right here, and they're being found due to excess porn and masturbation addictions. And it's only going to get worse as time goes on and younger people get their hands on porn earlier and earlier. We're seeing 10 to 12-year-olds getting access to the internet unregulated, and you obviously know what they're going to find. There's a reason your son's going and taking a poop for an hour at a time, and it's not because of stomach issues. Little boys are being exposed to the porn industry far before anyone could even tell them about sex, and their views of sex, relationships, women are all being warped before they ever had the chance. So I truly don't believe that this issue is being talked about nearly enough. One of the main issues is that people will constantly bring things up like, oh, how can porn be addictive? There's no chemicals being, put into the body. Well, the way that it's addictive is because it takes advantage of the brain's chemical responses. The brain produces dopamine and serotonin, and dopamine is the thing that gives your brain motivation to do certain things. Serotonin is what you get when the action is completed. It's the pleasure chemical. So addictions are formed when an action takes advantage of these two chemicals. An example of a healthy working dopamine response is you see a piece of food and your body gives you the motivation to get up and grab it. Without proper working dopamine receptors, you will not have the motivation to get up and grab that piece of food, even if you need it. Human brains have evolved to produce different amounts of dopamine depending on what the motivation is. So, can you guess what action or substance gets the brain to produce the most dopamine to get up and do that? It is sex. So, studies have found that porn actually produces more dopamine than crack, meaning that it's actually more addictive, and obviously it's more easily accessible as well. Addictions form when we overindulge in activities that reward our brains with heavy hits of dopamine. The problem is that porn is actually producing so much dopamine that it's actively harming our dopamine receptors. Damaged dopamine receptors mean that our brains won't produce the amount of dopamine required for normal everyday activities, leading to decreased motivation and increased stress and anxiety. Trying to stop porn even has withdrawal symptoms in itself, as the brain has now become dependent on the feelings that porn was giving us. On top of that, porn will also lead to the objectification of women. Boys raised on porn are basically told from the jump that women are nothing more than sexual objects to bring them pleasure. And in an increasingly lonelier and more isolated generation, the problem is only going to grow, as seen with the rise of sites like OnlyFans, which take advantage of lonely men who are willing to fork over literal cash if it means that they can get just a taste of what it's like to have what they think is a healthy sexual relationship, but in reality it's anything but. Alright, so now I'm going to go over what the philosophers believed and how their beliefs would kind of impact what they would believe about pornography. So, Socrates was concerned with the health of one's soul over anything else, even noting that a clear sign of an unhealthy soul was one which was focused on things such as status, wealth, power, and pleasure instead of the soul's well-being. Socrates believed that we should pursue wisdom over the things that this world deemed valuable, and then in doing so, he highlighted one of ancient philosophy's most important teachings, and the most important to my presentation, temperance. So what did Plato believe? I'm going to use Plato's three-part soul to really illustrate his key ideas of what he would think. So the first part of the soul is going to be the appetite, which is the desire for food, water, sex, etc., the things that the body kind of really feels like it needs. The second part is going to be our spirit, which desires things like honor, recognition, and success. The final part is going to be reason, which guides the other parts using rationality, thinking, and wisdom. Animals indulge on their appetite/initial desires without thinking, but we as rational creatures have the ability to look at a piece of food and say no. This is an extremely important part of what makes us human and what separates us from the other animals. The more that a person is a slave to their carnal desires, the more one just becomes like the other animals. Aristotle, being the godfather of virtue ethics, even stated that temperance was one of the main four cardinal values. In the middle of the two vices is temperance, and on the one extreme you have over self-indulgence, and the other extreme you have someone who is kind of stuck up/insensible. Knowing when to indulge in pleasure and when to abstain is a key point in becoming a much wiser person. So, in conclusion, when applying the philosophies and beliefs of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle to pornography, I'm left with the ultimate question: short-term pleasure or long-term gain? It won't be easy, but I think that our three philosophers would most definitely choose to be anti-porn, choosing self-discipline and temperance over a brief, false satisfaction that will ultimately never lead to true fulfillment. But if I'm being 100% realistic, the truth of the matter is that 90+% of boys are completely addicted to this thing, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be getting any better anytime quick. But as the information gets out there and the truth gets out there, maybe we'll see an end to this at some point. We're really seeing as a generation the turn on instant gratification. A lot of people are understanding that as a whole, it's really unhealthy. So maybe at some point soon, we'll see a fix to this issue as well.